The golden sun was shining as if pouring honey over to said Palm Beach, covering the water with a blanket of shimmering light. I was walking slowly on the fine sand, holding the hands of Saint Leo and Saint Sophie, my two young grandchildren. Every step they took kicked up sand, and their clear laughter echoed as I showed them how to pack the sand down to build a solid castle. A little further away, Claire, my daughter, sat quietly in a folding chair under a large umbrella. She was reapplying sunscreen while holding her phone for a video call with Robert, her husband. So glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment from which city you're watching me so I can see how far my story has traveled. Claire's voice sounded cheerful, louder than the noise of the waves. Look, the kids are building a beautiful sandcastle. She moved the phone to show Leo and Sophie concentrated on their game. I heard Robert's soft laughter in the background through the screen, warning them, "Don't forget to put sunscreen on the kids." Claire nodded, smiling brightly. Seeing my happy daughter, I smiled instinctively. Claire had always been my pride, a young and dedicated mother, a wife who loved her husband. Robert my son-in-law, was no less thoughtful. He was the one who had organized this trip, from the first-class flight to the luxurious beach house. But in the end, he couldn't come because he suddenly fell ill. I stood up, shook the sand off my hands, and walked toward the nearby public shower to wash off. The sand was sticky, and I had to rub for a while, thinking I should bring more wipes from the beach house. Just then, the phone in my pocket vibrated with a short, dry chime. I took it out, believing it would be a message from a family member, but it wasn't. An unknown number appeared on the screen with no name saved. The message was only a single line. "Leave now and quietly. Don't say anything to the children." My heart leaped as if someone had squeezed it. That sentence was cold, sharp as a razor, with no explanation or clue as to who sent it. I stood motionless, the phone clenched in my hand, my eyes scanning the beach. Families were still enjoying the sea. Children were running after the waves. The bar music sounded lively. Everything seemed normal, as if nothing had happened. But inside my chest, a feeling of unease began to creep in, icy cold, like seawater soaking through my clothes. Who sent that message? Why me and the children? Did it mean Leo and Sophie? Or was it referring to something else? I tried to take a deep breath, telling myself that maybe it was just a harmless prank, but deep down I knew it wasn't. At 6'5", I had lived long enough to know that my intuition was almost never wrong. I looked at Claire, still laughing on the phone, and then at my two grandchildren, focused on their castle. Everything remained calm, but that message was like a small crack that shattered the happy scene before my eyes. Just then, Leo ran toward me, pulling my hand gently. "Grandma, buy me an ice cream. I want chocolate." His voice was pure, but I jumped, nearly dropping the phone. I quickly put it back in my pocket and forced a smile. "All right, let's go buy one." I took Leo's hand and led Sophie as well toward the nearby ice cream stand. With every step, I couldn't stop looking back, my eyes reviewing every unfamiliar face on the beach. Were they following me, or was it just my imagination? The line in front of the ice cream stand was quite long, enough time for me to take out the phone and look again. The phrase was still there, alone, with no new information. "Leave now and quietly. Don't say anything to the children." I repeated it in my mind, trying to analyze every word. But the more I thought, the more tangled my head became. Who could have sent that message, and why did it have to be quietly if there was real danger? Why not alert the police immediately? The questions piled up, but there were no answers. While I was thinking, my gaze unintentionally stopped at a small drink stand at the edge of the beach. A young man with a baseball cap pulled down over his eyebrows and sunglasses was sitting there with a coffee in his hand, but he didn't seem to take his eyes off us. He pretended to look toward the sea, but I was sure I saw him glance at me several times. My heart began to beat faster. Could he be the one who sent the message? Or just a random passerby? I tried to stay calm, but my hands started to tremble. Just then, Sophie started to cry, sobbing, "I want strawberry ice cream. Leo took mine." My granddaughter's crying jolted me out of my thoughts, but it also made my head spin even more. I quickly crouched down to comfort her. There, Grandma will buy you another strawberry ice cream. Don't cry anymore." I stroked her hair, but inside I couldn't stop thinking about that message. I put the phone in my purse, trying to concentrate on the children, but the feeling of dread had already stuck to me like an invisible shadow. Back with Claire, I tried to speak in a calm voice. I'm going to the house to get more sodas and tissues. Stay with the kids for a bit. Claire nodded, still focused on her phone, not noticing the tension I was trying to hide. I left Leo and Sophie with her and started walking toward the paved path that led up to the beach house. With every step, I felt my heart pounding hard, as if it wanted to escape my chest. I didn't dare look back right away, but after walking a distance, I shot a quick glance. The young man in the cap had already stood up, his hands in his pockets, walking slowly in my direction. That gesture was like a knife twisting in my fear. When I set foot on the wooden steps leading to the beach house, every creak under my shoes awakened memories of this trip. Every step, every sound, dragged me back to the previous days when everything was still full of joy and hope. I truly wonder if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to be quiet to maintain peace? Or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. It all started 2 months earlier when Robert enthusiastically proposed this vacation trip. I still clearly remember that night. The whole family was gathered in the small living room. Robert was on the sofa with bright eyes, scrolling through pictures of the Florida coast on his phone. Mom, Claire, kids, we need an unforgettable vacation, he said in an excited voice. And Palm Beach is like paradise with blue water and white sand. And I've already found a perfect house with a private pool. Claire, my daughter, smiled radiantly, hugging her husband's arm, while I only smiled, thinking how thoughtful my son-in-law was. Leo and Sophie screamed with delight, wanting to swim and build sandcastles. Seeing my daughter's family so happy filled my heart, as if all the worries of daily life disappeared. Robert took care of everything, from the first-class flight tickets from Dallas to the 5-day rental of this luxurious house. He sent photos of the house to the family chat, boasting about the modern amenities, a spacious living room, an equipped kitchen, and a pool with an ocean view. I still remember Claire marveling, "You're incredible, Robert." "Mom, see how thoughtful my husband is." I nodded, feeling proud of my son-in-law. Robert had always been a family man, always looking out for Claire and the children. Everything changed only a day before departure, and suddenly Robert told Claire in a weak voice through the speakerphone, "I have a high fever. I don't think I can leave right away. Take Mom and the kids first. I'll rest for a few days, and then I'll catch up with you." Claire became nervous, worried about her husband, and simultaneously rushing with the preparations. I saw her running back and forth, checking every suitcase, constantly murmuring, "Why a high fever right now? What if something happens?" I took Claire's hand and reassured her, "Don't worry, Robert is strong. With a few days of rest, he'll be fine. I'll help you watch the children." Claire nodded, although the distress in her eyes remained. On the morning we left, I still clearly remember Robert. Although he said he was tired, he made an effort to carry every suitcase to the car. He was wearing a light t-shirt, his forehead beaded with sweat, but he still smiled at Claire. "Did you check everything? Don't forget anything." Then he leaned down to hug Leo and Sophie tightly. "Be good. Obey Grandma and Mom. I'll come to play with you soon." Sophie clung to her father's neck while Leo held his hand and excitedly said, "Dad, I get better soon so you can come to the beach with me." Robert smiled, stroked their little heads, and then turned to me. He looked at me with tenderness, though with something difficult to describe in his gaze. "Mom, I'm counting on you to take care of Claire and the children. You also take care of your health." I nodded and put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it, everyone." The flight from Dallas to Florida lasted more than 3 hours. Claire sat beside me, busy answering work messages and checking her phone occasionally to text Robert. "Mom, he says he still has a fever, but he's taken medicine," she commented in a voice full of worry. I just mumbled a response and gave her shoulder a gentle pat to calm her. Leo was absorbed in his iPad, playing puzzle games, while Sophie fell asleep on my lap. Her soft hair brushed my hand. Seeing my grandchildren, I felt peace, though also a little emptiness. At this age, long trips with the family weren't so frequent, and I valued every moment with Claire and the children. When the plane landed and we were on our way to the rental car, the air was stifling and the heavy atmosphere made me uncomfortable. As I waited for Claire to finish the paperwork, I casually noticed a burly man with a light jacket, although the weather didn't warrant it. He was in a corner, lighting a cigarette with his eyes fixed on our car. His eyes were cold, expressionless, as if observing something too intently. I tried to ignore him, thinking it might just be my imagination, but as we drove away, I felt his gaze still following me, and a shiver ran down my spine. "Mom, what's wrong?" Claire asked, when she saw I was quiet. I shook my head and forced a smile. "Nothing. I think I'm just tired." When we arrived at the beach house, all the check-in procedures were surprisingly fast. The house manager, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, barely heard Claire's name and immediately handed over the keys and an envelope with all the documents. "Mr. Robert left everything ready. Don't worry, enjoy your stay," he said cheerfully. I was a little surprised but also felt proud of my son-in-law's dedication. In the living room of the house, there was a basket of fresh fruit on the table next to a handwritten card. "Wishing you a happy family vacation, Robert." And Claire exclaimed excitedly, "Mom, look at this. He really is a wonderful husband." I smiled and nodded, but I couldn't help but wonder since when Robert was so thoughtful. He rarely took care of those small things. Now I enter the beach house with heavy feet, as if carrying stones tied to them. The air inside the house still held the aroma of the fruit from the basket Robert left, but now it failed to calm the storm raging inside me. I thought I had enough experience to face anything, but the mysterious message on the beach and the gaze of the young man in the cap unnerved me. The kitchen looked the same as when we left for the sea. The snack packages Claire had hurriedly opened for Leo and Sophie were still scattered on the counter, with some crumbs on the glass. I walked past without stopping, my eyes fixed on the hallway leading to the basement. The old wooden door at the end, which normally only served to store floats, folding chairs, and some utensils, suddenly made me shudder. My instinct told me that if there was an answer to the message, it had to be somewhere in this house. I pushed the door slowly, and the hinges creaked softly like a warning. I flipped the switch, and a weak yellowish light barely illuminated the dust particles floating in the air. The cold, damp tile floor made me slip a little. I clung to the stair railing, my heart pounding hard as I went down step by step. Every step took me deeper into a secret I might not want to discover. In the corner of the basement, 3 blue plastic drums caught my attention. They were lined up with labels that read, used oil, taped with silver duct tape, but the air didn't smell like oil. It smelled of a strong, penetrating odor that I immediately recognized. Gasoline. I felt my heart stop for a moment. Gasoline in a vacation rental house? I approached with trembling hands and touched the cap of the first one. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to check. The cap opened, and the smell of gasoline hit me directly, forcing me to cough and cover my mouth with my sleeve. I stepped back, my eyes stinging and my head spinning. Who had brought those drums here, and why? I scanned the basement, looking for more clues. Next to the drums, a thick roll of electrical cable extended from a wall socket to a strange device in the corner. I followed the cable, my heart pounding in my chest. Touching the device, I saw that it was an electronic timer. The screen showed red, blinking numbers. Iotus? Or 2 hours. I didn't understand it, but that number seemed like an invisible threat, raising my hackles. What was that timer for, and why was it here, in the basement of the house that Robert had so carefully chosen for us? I turned toward the door leading to the garage and noticed it was slightly ajar. A cold gust of air came in, bringing with it an even stronger smell of gasoline. I crossed the threshold. The basement light barely reached what was inside. Some cardboard boxes, plastic bags, and several disposable lighters were strewn on the floor. I bent down and picked one up, my hand shaking so much I almost dropped it. Nearby, in a small metal box, I found an intact box of matches and some electrical devices that looked like detonators. Each object was like a piece of a terrifying puzzle, and I knew I was facing a sinister plan that I still couldn't fully comprehend. Just then I heard footsteps coming down from upstairs, accompanied by Claire's voice calling, "Mom, where are you?" I jumped, nearly dropping the lighter. My heart was racing as if I had been caught doing something forbidden. I quickly closed the gasoline drum cap, dragged an old ladder to cover the basement door, and came out into the hallway pretending I was coming from inside the house. Claire appeared at the end of the hallway carrying Sophie in her arms, while Leo ran behind her. What are you doing here, Mom? Claire asked with a hint of surprise in her gaze. I forced a smile and with a trembling voice replied, Oh, I forgot my purse in the bedroom. I was just going to look for it. Sophie, hugging her doll, excitedly insisted, Mommy, let's go to the beach. I want to make another castle. Claire smiled, gently pinching the girl's cheek. All right, first, let me change your clothes. When mother and daughter disappeared toward the door, I quietly returned to the basement, my heart still pounding. I looked at the timer again. And 2 hours. That red number burned in my mind as if branded there. I didn't know what it meant, but my instinct told me that our time was running out. I took out my phone. My hands were shaking so much that I had to grip it hard to press the camera button. I photographed the gasoline drums, the roll of electrical cable, and the timer. Then I hid everything in a secret album. I didn't dare delete them, but I also didn't dare leave them in a visible place. Each photo was evidence, but also an unbearable weight on my shoulders. I went back to the beach and told Claire, Honey, I'm going out for a moment to buy more snacks for everyone. I spoke, trying to sound as natural as possible. Claire looked up and smiled. Mom, hurry back. The kids are already asking for more cookies. I nodded, feigning a smile, although inside, all I wanted was to flee that place immediately. I left the beach house and followed the paved path that led down toward the convenience store near the beach. The afternoon breeze was cool, carrying the salty smell of the sea, but it couldn't extinguish the fire of anxiety burning in my chest. Rounding a bend, I noticed the old fat red pickup truck, parked in the same spot where I had seen it that morning. It was parked under the shade of a tree, too perfect to be a coincidence. Inside, a burly man, his shirt untucked, was holding a newspaper, pretending to read. But when I deliberately slowed down and lengthened my walk, I clearly saw the reflection of his eyes in the rearview mirror, fixed on me. He didn't move, but his gaze was cold, like that of a predator watching its prey. My heart beat faster, but I forced myself to stay calm and keep walking as if nothing was wrong. I ducked into the nearby 7-Eleven, pretending I was only going to shop inside. The fluorescent lights shone intensely. The smell of freshly baked bread floated in the air, but I couldn't pay attention to anything. I randomly grabbed some bottles of soda, a bag of cookies, and a box of candy for Leo and Sophie, but my eyes kept glancing toward the window. Just as I suspected when I left the store, the red pickup truck started silently. The engine sound was low, but enough for me to understand that it was following me. It wasn't going fast. It maintained a calculated distance, as if wanting me to know it was there without raising suspicion. I tightly clutched the shopping bag, trying to control my breathing, but inside me, the dread had already turned into a storm. To check if that guy was really following me or not, I quickly crossed the street and entered a small fruit stand across the way. The owner, a middle-aged woman with a friendly smile, greeted me. Hello, ma'am, do you want to buy some West California oranges? I cut them this morning. They're very sweet. I nodded, pretending to ask the price. How much is a pound of oranges? While she answered, I looked through the glass of the door. The red pickup truck had stopped not far away, right under a lamppost. The man took out his phone, said something very brief, and hung up. He wasn't looking directly at me, but I knew he was watching my every move. Every action of his was like a knife deepening my fear. Who is this man? What does he want from my family? I bought a bag of oranges, thanked the woman, and deliberately walked slower to observe. The truck didn't move immediately, but I felt the guy's gaze glued to my back. I returned to the beach house with a heavy heart, but I forced myself to keep a serene face. Entering the house, Claire was sitting with the children at the table, helping Sophie wipe the sand off her hands. Mom, you took a long time, she scolded me affectionately. Then she turned to Leo. Look, Grandma bought you the cookies you like. Leo shouted with joy, ran to grab the bag, and Sophie jumped, asking for candy. I smiled at them, but it was a forced smile, as if I had to use all my strength to hide the storm inside me. During dinner, Claire cheerfully mentioned that Robert had just texted her. He says his fever has gone down, but he's still a bit tired, she said in a carefree tone, her eyes sparkling when she named her husband. I nodded, but inside, an unexplainable feeling invaded me. I probed. Did Robert say when he's coming, honey? Claire shook her head. Not yet, Mom. I guess he needs a few more days of rest. But he told us to have fun. He'll come soon. I murmured, forcing a smile, but in my mind, the images of the gasoline drums and the timer in the basement clearly appeared. Robert is attentive, but not too attentive. And does that man in the red pickup truck have something to do with him? After dinner, when Claire went upstairs to put the children to sleep, I stayed alone on the balcony. The sea wind blew strongly, carrying the murmur of the waves and the chirping of insects. I looked far away where the lights of other houses reflected on the water like stars, but that scenery failed to calm the fire of anxiety burning in my chest. I felt like a trapped animal, not knowing where the hunter was, but sure that he was very close. Suddenly, my phone vibrated, interrupting my thoughts. It was the same unknown number from the afternoon. A new message appeared on the screen. "Get out of there now. Your family is in danger. I've already called the police. They're on their way." My hand trembled, and I almost dropped the phone. I read and reread the sentence. Every word was like a hammer blow to my heart. Your family is in danger. The warning was clearer, but also more terrifying. Who was sending that message, and how did they know that my family was here? I looked toward the street where the red pickup truck was still motionless under the lamppost's yellow light. The man inside wasn't moving, but I knew he was still watching. I stood up, gripping the balcony railing tightly, trying to organize the loose pieces in my head. The gasoline drums, the timer, the man following me. And now this message. Everything pointed to the same thing. There was a plan underway against us, but why, and who was behind it? Robert? No, I don't want to believe it. He's Claire's husband, Leo and Sophie's father. But the evidence before my eyes, his unusual attentiveness, the house that was too perfect, and the fact that he didn't come with us, didn't let me dismiss my suspicions. The sea kept murmuring, but in my mind, only one question resonated. Who is setting a trap for us? Who is sending these messages? And why is he warning me in secret? I returned to the living room. The warm yellow light fell upon the sofa where, just hours earlier, Leo and Sophie's laughter had echoed. Now everything had a false tranquility that was frightening. I sat down with the phone clenched in my hand, my chest heavy as if the whole world was crashing down on me. I've seen all kinds of storms in life, but I'd never felt as helpless as I did now. The gasoline drums in the basement, the timer blinking with intense red numbers, the red pickup truck outside, and the warning message. It was all like the pieces of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wanted to scream, to run and hug Claire and the children. But the instruction, "Don't say anything to the children," from the first message, held me back like an invisible rope. Suddenly, the phone started ringing insistently. Each ring was like a jolt to my heart. It was the same unknown number. I opened it, and a series of new messages appeared, accompanied by screenshots of a conversation. I checked, and as soon as I read the first line, my heart stopped. It was a message between Robert and a contact saved as Manny, and the content was cold and cutting like a knife. "At 2 o'clock sharp, the system will be activated. Just make sure the house burns completely without a trace. I have the perfect alibi." And Manny replied in few words. "Okay, the truck will always be in sight. Tell me whether you have parents, grandparents, or older family members who deserve more respect than they currently receive from their families. Alternatively, tell me if you yourself are going through a situation in which you're not appreciated as much as you truly deserve." My blood ran cold. The phone almost slipped from my trembling hand. I bit my lip, trying to calm down, but my head was spinning. Robert, the son-in-law I trusted, the husband Claire loved, the father of Leo and Sophie, was responsible for such a terrible conspiracy. I shook my head, not wanting to believe it, but the words on the screen were blows that shattered any hope. "Burn completely, without a trace." That phrase repeated in my head, and a shiver ran through me. What did he want? The insurance money, or some secret I didn't know yet? I quickly took screenshots of every screen. My fingers were trembling so much that I had to press the button multiple times. I emailed them to my personal account and hid them in a hidden folder, as if that were the only way to keep the evidence safe. Each click made my heart clench. I didn't know what I was up against, but I knew that if those messages were real, my family was facing the scythe of death. I walked to the window and opened the curtain to look outside. The red pickup truck was still motionless under the street's yellowish light, like a beast lying in wait. The man inside had just lit a cigarette, and white smoke rose into the night, mixing with the dim light. He wasn't moving, but I felt his cold and calculating gaze. It was Manny's, the one Robert had mentioned. I closed the curtain quickly, trying to contain the rise in panic. I wanted to call the police immediately, but the last message, "I've already called the police, they're on their way," made me hesitate. If the police were on their way, what should I do now? Wait or act? Suddenly, Claire's voice sounded behind me. "Mom, you haven't slept. Is something wrong?" I jumped, quickly put the phone in my purse, and turned around with a forced smile. Claire had just come down from upstairs, her hair tied up, wearing a loose, comfortable t-shirt. Her look showed a little concern, as if she had sensed something out of the ordinary. I tried to stay calm. "Oh, nothing. I just have a little indigestion. It must have been from eating too much seafood." Claire smiled and went to the cupboard to get a glass of water. "Have some warm water. I'll bring it to you." But when she turned around, I caught a shadow of suspicion in her eyes. Claire had always been sensitive, and I knew I couldn't hide it from her for much longer. Claire offered me the glass of warm water in a sweet voice. "Go rest, Mom. We want to go to the beach again tomorrow." I nodded and took a sip, but its warmth failed to quench the cold spreading inside me. When Claire went back upstairs, I collapsed onto the sofa with my hands in my head. I knew I couldn't keep silent anymore. If the message was true, at 2 a.m, this house would go up in flames, and none of us, me, Claire, Leo, Sophie, would have an escape. But how could I tell Claire that her husband, the man she loved and trusted, was planning to destroy everything? The wall clock in the living room struck just 11. Every tick was like a hammer blow to my chest. I knew I couldn't delay it any longer. If the message was correct, there were only 3 hours left, and everything could turn to ashes. I had to tell Claire, even if it shattered her heart. I took a deep breath, forced myself to calm down, and went up the stairs to Claire's bedroom. The faint yellow light in the hallway brushed against the wooden walls, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper something unsettling. I knocked on the door softly. The sound was dry in the quiet. "Claire, can I come in?" I called, trying to sound calm. Claire's voice replied, a little sleepy but still sweet. "Come in, Mom. I'm not asleep." I pushed the door open and saw her picking up Leo and Sophie's toys from the floor. A red toy car was rolling next to Sophie's doll, and suddenly I remembered the red pickup truck outside, which made my heart clench. I closed the door, approached Claire, and sat on the edge of the bed. "And Claire, I need to talk to you. It's very important," I said in a low voice, almost a whisper. Claire looked up with a hint of surprise. She put down the doll, sat up, and her usual smile disappeared. "What's wrong? Why is it so serious?" she asked, evident concern on her face. Seeing my daughter's clear eyes, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Claire had always trusted Robert. She had always been proud of her attentive husband. How could I tell her that the same man was conspiring to destroy the whole family? I breathed again, gathered all my courage, and took out my phone. "Claire, listen to me. I don't want to scare you, but you need to know the truth." I opened the hidden photo album and showed her the images one by one, the gasoline drums in the basement, the roll of electrical cable, and the timer with the number "Ishotubwag" in bright red. Claire looked at the screen, and her expression filled with bewilderment. "Mom, what is this? Why is there gasoline in the house?" Her voice trembled as if searching for a logical explanation. I swallowed hard and continued scrolling to the messages from the strange number, including the conversation between Robert and Manny. "At 02 the system will be activated automatically. You have to make sure the house burns and leaves no trace. I have the perfect alibi." I read aloud, my voice cracking. Claire grabbed the phone, stared at the screen, and her face turned paper white. "No, it can't be," Claire murmured, her voice breaking, almost inaudible. "He was sick, Mom. Robert was still worried about us. It can't be him." Tears began to roll down her cheeks, falling onto the blanket and leaving small, damp circles. Seeing her like that, I felt my heart breaking. I wanted to hug her, tell her it was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence in front of us was too clear. I squeezed Claire's hand tightly, pulling her back to reality. "Claire, listen to me. There are many gasoline drums and a timer device in the basement. Outside, there's a man in a red pickup truck watching us. This isn't made up. I saw it with my own eyes." Claire shook her head, her eyes full of panic, as if trying to cling to a minimal hope. Maybe someone set him up, Mom. Robert can't do this to me or to Leo and Sophie." Her voice broke, and tears burst out uncontrollably. He loves the children, and you know that. The day we said goodbye, he hugged them. He asked you to take care of me and the kids. How could he? Claire stopped, covered her face, and her shoulders began to shake. Seeing my daughter suffer like this felt like a knife plunging into my chest. I wanted to scream, to curse Robert for betraying Claire's love. But I knew it wasn't the time for anger. I had to be strong for my daughter and my grandchildren. Yes, and Claire, I know you don't want to believe it. I don't either. But we can't take the risk. I held her hand firmly, speaking slowly, trying to convey strength. What I saw, these messages, everything points to the same thing. We are in danger. If this house is going to burn at 02 Unquiet, we have to leave now. Claire looked up, her eyes red, but she still shook her head. Mom, if this is true, I have to call Robert. I have to ask him directly. Maybe there's a mistake. She reached for the phone, but I immediately stopped her. No, Claire, if Robert is behind this, calling him now will only alert him. We don't have time. The wall clock was ticking towards 11:45 p.m. The time waited for no one, and I knew that if I hesitated for one more minute, my entire family could be devoured by the fire that Robert and that man Manny had planned. I approached Claire, who was still sitting on the bed, hugging a cushion as if it were her last refuge. So, Claire, listen to me, I said with a harsher tone than normal. We have to leave now. At 02 Auk, this house will burn. Didn't you see the gasoline drums? The timer and Robert's messages? Claire looked up, her eyes swollen, her voice weak but firm. Mom, I don't believe Robert would do that. He loves me. He loves the children. There must be a mistake. I want to stay. I want to wait for him to explain it to me. Her words were like a knife, painful and infuriating at the same time. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her react. But I knew this was no time to argue. I just squeezed her hand. My voice softened, though I remained firm. I won't force you, but I'm taking Leo and Sophie right now. You stay here, but I will come back for you. Promise me you won't do anything crazy. Then Claire looked at me with eyes full of pain. I knew she still clung to the hope that Robert was innocent, and I didn't have time to convince her anymore. I rushed to the children's room. I gently shook Leo and Sophie to wake them up. Both children were sleeping soundly, their hair messy, murmuring in their dreams. Leo, Sophie, wake up, I whispered, trying to keep my voice as soft as possible. Grandma is going to take you to buy cakes and juice at the store. It's going to be fun. Sophie opened her eyes, still groggy, but immediately exclaimed, Cakes, Grandma! I want strawberry candy. Leo sat up, rubbing his eyes, excited. I want chocolate cookies. Seeing the two children so innocent, my heart ached. They didn't know I was trying to save them from a death trap. I put on a light jacket, tied their shoelaces, and took their hands to go downstairs. Claire was at the door with a look full of conflict, as if she wanted to come, but her feet wouldn't move. I turned around, took her hand one more time. I'm taking the children to a safe place first. Stay here. I will come back for you, okay? Claire nodded, but I saw her lips trembling, as if trying to hold back tears. I hugged her tightly and then left with Leo and Sophie, my heart heavy as lead. To avoid the gaze of the man in the red pickup truck, I guided the children through an alley alongside the house. The alley was dark, with only the dim light from some nearby houses. I tightly squeezed Leo and Sophie's hands, my heart pounding, not daring to look back. Fortunately, when I glanced sideways, the man in the truck seemed busy with his phone, not noticing us. I sighed with relief, but I didn't relax. Grandma, why are we going to buy things in the middle of the night? Sophie asked in an innocent voice. Why isn't Mom coming with us? Leo added, clutching his toy car. I forced a smile, making up an excuse. Oh, it's just that I want to take you to the beach early tomorrow and I need to prepare food. Mom is tired and stayed behind to rest. The children nodded without asking more, but their questions were like knives that increased my worry for Claire. The 24-hour convenience store glowed in the middle of the night. The fluorescent light blinded me. I bought milk, cookies, juice, and a bag of strawberry candy for Sophie to distract them. The young clerk with a badge that read, Jessie, asked me curiously, Are you still taking the kids out for a walk at this hour? Aren't you afraid it's dangerous so late? I smiled nervously, my voice trembling. Yes, the children wanted snacks, and I indulged them a little. He nodded without asking more, but his curious gaze made me more tense. I led Leo and Sophie to a corner with some plastic chairs. Sit here and eat your cookies. Grandma is going to get a few more things and we'll be right back, I told them, leaving the bag next to them. While the children were distracted with the cookies, I moved to a corner near the register. I took out my phone. My hands were trembling so much that I had to grip it to dial the number. I called Shine 1 in a very low voice, almost a whisper. Hello, I need to report an emergency. The beach house I'm renting in Palm Beach is rigged to burn down. There are gasoline drums and a timer in the basement, and a man in a red pickup truck is watching us. The operator, with a calm but firm voice, asked me to confirm the location. I gave the address of the house with a trembling voice. Please come quickly, my family is in danger. The operator reassured me. Stay calm, the patrol is on its way. Find a safe place and wait for us. I hung up immediately, not daring to say more, afraid the man in the truck might hear me. I returned to Leo and Sophie with a little relief, knowing the police were coming, but still unable to shake the worry for Claire. I looked at my 2 grandchildren chewing candy without a care, and I told myself that at least they were safe. But what about Claire? She was still in the house, clinging to the idea that Robert was innocent. I couldn't let my daughter face the danger alone. I turned to Jesse, the store clerk, trying to keep my voice steady. Young man, could you watch the children for a moment? I forgot something at the house. I'll be right back. Jesse nodded, smiling kindly. Of course, ma'am, don't worry. I'll watch the children. I thanked him. Then I turned to Leo and Sophie. Stay here with Brother Jesse. Grandma will be right back. And Sophie hugged her doll and nodded. Yes, Grandma, come back fast. I ran through the dark alley, my legs aching, as if an invisible force were pushing me. I was breathing heavily, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. I had only one thought. Get Claire out of that house before it was too late. But when I was still a few hundred yards away, a pungent smell of gasoline and burning plastic hit my nose and stopped me. I felt my heart drop. A cold fear ran down my spine. I looked up and saw a red flame erupting from the first-floor window of the house. In an instant, the fire spread, devouring the entire house with crackling and explosions, like a hungry monster roaring. Claire, I screamed, unable to contain myself, my voice breaking in the night wind. I ran toward the house, ignoring the scorching heat coming from afar. Every step was like entering a nightmare where all I could think about was my daughter trapped in that deadly house. I didn't know if the fire had started by accident or if someone had intentionally set it earlier than planned. All I knew was that I couldn't lose Claire, not ever. Black smoke billowed from the front door, so dense I could barely see the path. I pushed the door open and went inside. The heat hit my face, burning me as if fire were being thrown at me. My eyes stung. Tears poured out uncontrollably, but I kept screaming, Claire, where are you? Answer me. Amidst the crackling of the burning furniture, I heard a strong cough from the living room. I ran there, almost stumbling over the red-hot wooden floor. Claire was trying to crawl, her clothes saturated with smoke, her hair tangled, her face pale from lack of oxygen. Mom, she whispered, her eyes full of panic. I knelt, grabbed her hand, and helped her up. Honey, get up. Mom will get you out of here, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Claire was weak, leaning on me, but we only advanced a few steps before realizing that the back exit was blocked by fire. Curtains were burning and falling into ashes. Pieces of wood from the ceiling began to fall. Every crash was like a warning that our time was running out. The fire was spreading fast, surrounding us like a fierce, merciless beast. I coughed hard, trying to drag Claire toward the window, but the heat had shattered the glass. Fragments fell, cutting my hands. Claire collapsed, too weak to continue. Mom, I can't go on, she whispered, her eyes closed. I panicked. I hugged her and pulled her with all my strength. And Claire, you have to hold on. Mom won't leave you here. I pounded hard on the window, but it was useless. The glass was already in pieces, and the heat outside was even more terrifying. I felt despair, as if the whole world was collapsing around me. I had promised to protect her, but now all I could do was hug her tightly, praying for a miracle. Just then, the sirens of the fire department and the police roared into the air, tearing through the night. A voice over the loudspeaker sounded loud, but reassuring. Is anyone in there? Stay calm. We are coming to rescue you. I heard hurried footsteps, the sound of pressurized water. Several firefighters in protective suits burst through the thick smoke. One quickly placed an oxygen mask on me. The fresh air jolted me back. Another carried Claire in his arms and shouted, Out immediately. Follow me. I walked staggeringly behind, tightly clinging to the firefighter's arm as if it were the last link keeping me alive. When I reached the soaked lawn outside, I collapsed, breathing heavily, my body shaking uncontrollably. The night air was cool, but I still felt a scorching heat, as if the flames were still burning inside me. Tourists from nearby houses had gathered, murmuring to each other with looks of fear and curiosity. I didn't care. I was only looking for Claire, who was being placed on a stretcher, while a paramedic put an oxygen mask on her. Claire was still conscious. Her tearful eyes looked at me, and in a choked voice she said, "Mom, I should have believed you. Forgive me." And her words were like a knife, but painful, yet they gave me relief. Claire was alive, and that was all that mattered. Suddenly, I heard hurried footsteps and Sophie's crying voice. "Grandma!" I turned and saw the two children being guided from the patrol car by a female police officer. Sophie ran toward me, clinging tightly, sobbing. "Grandma, I was so scared. Our house burned down." Leo was beside her, his eyes red, still holding his toy car. I hugged them both with all my might. Tears burst out, uncontrollable. "Grandma's here. Everything is fine. You are safe now," I whispered, my voice choked. Looking at them, I felt my strength return, even though the pain was tearing me apart inside. Just hours earlier, that house had been full of their laughter. Now all that remained was ashes. A tall police officer approached me. He introduced himself as Lieutenant Morales, with a calm but firm voice. "Are you all right, ma'am? We received a report of arson with a trap. Clearly, this was not an accident. We will investigate thoroughly." I nodded, my voice trembling. "Thank you. I saw gasoline drums and a timer in the basement, and there was a guy in a red pickup truck following us." Morales quickly took notes and then assured me, "We have secured the scene. You and your family rest. We'll take care of it." After the fire, Claire and I were transferred to the hospital, where the smell of disinfectant and the constant sound of machines made my anguish heavier. I was used to physical pain, but this time the blow was to my soul. Robert's betrayal, the son-in-law I had loved like a son, and the image of Claire on the verge of dying in the flames were wounds impossible to close. I stayed by her bedside, holding her hand, not taking my eyes off her pale face. Claire was weak, but fortunately she had only suffered smoke inhalation with no serious injuries. Leo and Sophie were being cared for by officers in a secure room at the police station, and I could only pray that those children wouldn't be scarred by what they had experienced. The next morning, as the first rays of sun filtered through the hospital window, Officer Morales entered the room with a serious but also reassuring air. He sat on the plastic chair next to the bed and spoke in a grave voice. "Mrs. Stevens, I have new information about the case." I squeezed Claire's hand tightly, my heart pounding in my chest, preparing for what I was about to hear. Morales reported that Robert had been arrested at his apartment in Dallas that same night. When we entered, he was still in his pajamas, feigning a fever and acting completely innocent. Morales said with a penetrating gaze. "But during the search, we found a suitcase full of cash, dozens of lost football betting slips, and a second phone. It contained messages that matched the evidence you gave us." Hearing that, I felt a weight in my chest. It turned out that everything Robert had done, from the vacation, the luxurious house, to his attentive gestures, was part of a cruel plan. I looked at Claire, who was biting her lip, her eyes misty. He really did that," then Claire whispered, her voice broken thin, as if she still didn't want to accept the truth. I squeezed her hand harder, holding back my own tears. "It's all right, honey, I'm here." Although rage and pain boiled inside me, Robert had not only betrayed Claire, he had also endangered the lives of Leo and Sophie, two innocent children. Morales continued. "And we also captured Manny, the one driving the red pickup truck. We caught him trying to flee Palm Beach. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Manny confessed everything. Robert hired him to detonate the house and simulate a short circuit." I nodded, but my mind was stunned. Everything fit with what I had seen, the gasoline drums, the timer, and the cold gaze of that man in the truck. But the big question still lingered. Why did Robert do that? What led him to be willing to destroy his entire family? Then Morales lowered his voice as if about to reveal something important. There is another person involved in this, and we believe you should know her. I frowned, full of doubts. Morales led Claire, who had received permission to get out of bed, and me to a small room at the police station where Leo and Sophie were playing with a female officer. There, a young woman in her mid-20s was sitting with reddened eyes and trembling hands holding a cell phone. She stood up when she saw us and spoke timidly. I'm Monica. I was the one who sent you the warning message. I looked at her, and a whirlwind of emotions flooded me. Monica had long black hair, large eyes, but full of anguish. She was wearing a simple t-shirt. She looks like any young girl one might find at the mall, but her gaze, laden with remorse and fear, left me motionless. You were the one who sent me the message? I asked in a hoarse voice. Monica nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I never thought things would go this far. I just wanted to save your family. Monica began to speak in a trembling voice, as if reliving that terrible moment. She said she was Robert's mistress, but at first, she believed he was a wealthy, single businessman. He took me to fancy restaurants. He gave me expensive gifts. He told me he never had a family, Monica recounted, gripping the cell phone tightly. I believed him until the morning of the incident. She paused, took a deep breath, and continued. That day, while Robert was showering, I saw his phone on the table. A message popped up from someone named Manny. Out of curiosity, I opened it. Her voice broke. Her eyes welled up with tears. I read these words. Tomorrow night the house will burn. No one will get out alive. The insurance money will be divided. 40% for you, 60% for me. I was frozen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Claire, standing next to me, covered her face as her shoulders trembled. I took her hand, trying to stay calm, even though I was burning with anger inside. Monica continued. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything. I quickly took a screenshot as proof and looked up your number in Robert's contacts. I sent you a message to warn you immediately, but I didn't dare explain much because he could come back at any moment. She said that when Robert came out of the bathroom, she had to pretend nothing was wrong, even though she was terrified inside. That night, after Robert left, I decided to send more evidence and call the police. I never thought I was about to become an accomplice to a murderer. Monica sobbed, her voice cracking. I just wanted to save your family. I looked at her with a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I hated Robert, the man who had deceived both Claire and this young woman. But I also felt compassion for Monica. She was also a victim, unknowingly caught in Robert's web of lies. You did the right thing, I told her in a hoarse voice. If it weren't for you, we might not be here. Monica lowered her head, letting her tears fall to the floor. Claire, next to me, silently wiped her tears, not saying a word. I knew she was suffering, not only from Robert's betrayal, but also from the cruel truth that the man she loved was willing to sacrifice his family for money. A few months after the devastating fire, I found myself sitting in a crowded courtroom, my heart heavy as a stone. At 65, I had witnessed many things, but the trial against Robert and Manny was the first time I felt that justice was beginning to be served, even though it brought with it an impossible pain to erase. Claire was next to me, her cold hand clinging to mine, her gaze firm but marked by deep wounds. Leo and Sophie stayed at the house of a close friend of Claire's, and I silently thanked that the children didn't have to see their father, fiend his crimes. The murmur in the room subsided when the judge struck the gavel and the trial officially began. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man with a calm but sharp voice, presented the irrefutable evidence one by one. He projected the screenshots of the messages on Monica's phone onto the large screen. Every cold line between Robert and Manny appeared clearly. At 200 sharp, the system will be activated. Just make sure the house is reduced to ashes without any trace. I felt Claire squeeze my hand even harder. Her breathing became strained. The prosecutor then showed the photos of the gasoline drums and the timer that I had photographed in the basement, along with Manny's detailed statement, who ended up confessing everything under the pressure of the evidence. Finally, he revealed Robert's history of accumulated debts, lost sports betting slips, and predatory loans that he had hidden from Claire for years. Every piece of evidence was like a stab, not only in Claire's heart, but also in mine, thinking of all the years I had trusted my son-in-law. Monica was called to the stand. The young woman, her black hair tied up and her eyes still reddened, took the stand with a trembling but firm demeanor. "My name is Monica Garcia," she began, her voice shaky but clear. "I was deceived by Robert. He told me he was a single businessman who loved me. I believed him until I saw those horrible messages." She recounted the moment she discovered Robert's plan when she accidentally read the messages with Manny on his phone. "I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. I only thought about saving Mrs. Stevens' family, even though I didn't know who they were." Monica turned toward me with a look full of remorse. "I took screenshots and wrote to her to warn her as soon as I could. I couldn't allow that to happen." The room fell silent. Only the murmurs of the attendees could be heard. I looked at Monica with gratitude and sadness at the same time. She, though caught by Robert's lies, became the one who saved my family. Robert, sitting in the dock, kept shouting to defend himself. "It's all a lie," he vociferated, his voice broken by panic. "Mrs. Stevens hated me from the beginning. She invented all of this to destroy my family." He pointed toward me with a look full of resentment, but I just watched him in silence, unperturbed. His words no longer carried weight when the recording of Manny's statement resonated in the room. In it, Manny confessed that Robert had paid him to detonate the house, that the plan was calculated to look like a short circuit to cover up the intention to collect the insurance money. Robert lowered his head, with nothing more to say, sitting in silence, his hands trembling. In the end, after a tense trial, the judge struck the gavel to pronounce the sentence. Robert and Manny were convicted of attempted murder and premeditated arson, receiving the highest penalty according to law. The sound of the gavel marked the end of the months of pain my family had suffered. Claire did not cry. She remained motionless, her gaze empty, but without the trembling from before. I knew she was trying to be strong, even though her heart was shattered. I took her hand and whispered, "It's all over, honey. We're going to start again." And Claire nodded, her lips tight, but in her eyes I saw a new gleam. It wasn't the naive hope from before, but the determination to move forward. Immediately after the trial, Claire filed for divorce. She didn't need advice. She didn't hesitate when signing the papers, determined to keep full custody of Leo and Sophie. "I don't want the children to grow up under the shadow of a father like that," she told me in a firm voice, very different from the fragile young woman of months ago. Looking at her, I felt pride and also pain. Claire had matured through suffering, but I knew the wound in her heart would take a long time to heal. We moved to a smaller house in the outskirts of Dali, without the luxuries of the house in Palm Beach, but full of warmth and peace. In the front yard, there was a small oak tree, where Leo and Sophie often played every afternoon. Gradually, the children's laughter returned, pure and innocent. Although sometimes I saw a flicker of sadness in their eyes, remembering the days on the beach. They no longer asked about Robert, as if they had accepted that their father was not part of their lives. I don't know if that's the right thing, but I try to fill that void with all my love. One day, Monica arrived as a surprise. She brought a bag of bagels and a new doll for Sophie. "I made it myself. I hope you like it," Monica said, smiling as she handed the gift to Sophie. The girl screamed with joy and hugged her tightly. Leo, always more reserved, also smiled when he received a box of chocolate cookies. Seeing that scene, I felt my heart lightening. Monica was no longer the mistress in the shadows, but someone special to my family. "Thank you, Monica," I told her in a sincere voice. "Without you, we wouldn't be here." Monica shook her head, her eyes moist. "Don't say that. I just did what was right." One quiet night when Leo and Sophie were already fast asleep, I sat by the window and closed my diary. I wrote a final line, my hand trembling as I remembered those terrible days in Palm Beach. There are scars that will never heal, but thanks to them, we learned to be stronger, to love each other more, and to value every day of life. I looked outside, where the moonlight illuminated the oak tree in the yard, and for the first time in many months, I felt a true peace. The nightmare was over, and although the road ahead would still be difficult, I knew my family would get through it because we had each other. After all we've lived through, I just want to leave a simple but profound message. Life can be full of lies, betrayals, and cruel traps, but Clarity, courage, and the love of family will always be the strongest shield to resist. Never blindly trust someone to the point of giving up your own life. And also, don't ignore your intuition because sometimes that is the voice that can save you. More importantly, value every moment with your loved ones. Because that love is what lifts us from the ashes, gives us back the light, and allows us to continue writing our story. The story you have just heard has changed names and locations to protect the identity of those involved. We tell it not to judge, but with the hope that someone listens and pauses to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence within their own homes? I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to keep quiet to maintain the peace? Or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story can become a candle that lights the way for another. God always blesses, and I am convinced that courage will lead us to better days. For now, on the final screen, I will leave two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.